Is AI eating your brain? If so, what can you do about it? And I think you know what I mean. You open up an email, a personal one that you should easily, instinctively just start to type a response to. But instead, you sit there for around 10 to 30 seconds, staring at a blank screen, wondering, how do I even start this thing? That is AI atrophy in real time. And this is AI atrophy, not apathy, which is a completely different thing, which we will cover in a future episode. I'm talking here about a muscle that you've stopped using completely, which is wasting away while everything on the surface looks completely fine. Think about it, even professional football players don't come out of injury and immediately start becoming the player they were. They need time to rest, recover, and retrain some of that muscle memory that they lost. So over the next 15 minutes, I'm going to go over the 3 places that I've noticed it: in my own work, my team's work, and within my business, and the frameworks and tools that I'm using to avoid it. This is the Singularity. We talk about the future of AI and how you can adopt it within your business. Let's start with the one that nobody sees. The one that you do whilst you're on your own. So within my business, Cold Cut Recovery, we had a new client, but we were just amending an existing contract template. But I got lazy. I decided to just copy and paste it into ChatGPT and say, fill this out with the new client's details. I thought everything was fine until one day before it was supposed to be signed. That's when I noticed one of the key terms had been completely omitted. This is due to the innate randomness that LLMs have. It was pretty silly, and we now do this through a deterministic workflow instead. And even though I've been using AI since pretty much when ChatGPT came out at the start of my business, I would have caught that 2 years ago. And that's where I notice within myself, I'm not sharp, especially when it comes to proofreading. This doesn't even mean that AI wouldn't have been good here. I simply could have just asked it to check every part of the contract, and it would have. Instead, I used it to generate a new one. And this is important to understand. A large language model is probabilistic. All it's doing is predicting the next word that's going to come up. This is why you can run the same prompt 1, 2, 3, 4 times, and each time get a slightly different variation. So basically, I took something that needed to be 100% correct and ran it through a guessing machine. This is like telling someone your age by spinning a roulette wheel and picking the first number that comes up. And I think this is one of the main drivers of AI atrophy. The tasks that used to demand real care can now be done with a single prompt. And when the complexity goes, so does the due diligence. And this is where AI atrophy can creep in. So what have I changed about this? And what I do now is draft first, edit later. So here's what I've changed. I'll draft first, then edit later. This means getting all the thoughts out of my head onto paper, or in this case, into Claude. And then all I do is ask the tool to tidy it up, to make it flow a little bit better, to correct any spelling mistakes. And this episode is a very good example of this. I didn't ask Claude or ChatGPT to give me any ideas. I had the idea for this episode and all the thoughts that come along with it. I just didn't really know how to put this all together in a fluid way. So I wrote the first version of the script and then give it to Claude to say, put this in a way which makes sense to most people. That is one of the key advantages to AI. It's very good at language. It is a large language model after all. But it is not better at knowing what I think. And that's a line I will not cross. And it's not just me who's losing my edge because of AI. There is real scientific evidence behind this which proves this theory. Take MIT's Media Lab, for example, led by Dr. Natalia Kuzmina. MIT took a group of 54 people and strapped an EEG to their head. An EEG basically measures brain activity. They then give 3 groups the task to write an essay. 1 with no tools, 1 with search engine, and 1 with ChatGPT. Not only did the ChatGPT cohort have 54% less neural connectivity, 84% of them couldn't quote a single thing from the essay. But they produced work they just didn't understand. And that itself is a much bigger problem, and one you'll probably find within your teams. I don't know if the teacher who was marking them was just being a bit bitter, but she actually described the ones that we made with ChatGPT as soulless. It just shows the underlying uncanny valley feeling you get sometimes when you read a post or a story and you just know it's written with AI. Whilst this is a study which hasn't been peer reviewed, the results are still shocking. Because this was done in 2025, and I think all of us now have had enough time around AI and around people who are using AI to anecdotally feel that that is right and that is what's happening. And coming back to my point of draft first, and then edit later. They ran the same study again, but with the group who had produced the essay first and then ran it through AI. And what they found is the neural connectivity actually went up in this instance. Same tool, same task, different order, much different results. I want to move on to the second place where I see it most, and that's within my team. And it doesn't often appear as a problem. In fact, sometimes you can be a little bit impressed with it. And that's when a member of your team will come to you with a beautifully crafted presentation. It's formatted properly with bar charts, interactable elements, and the transitions are just... But then it gets to them actually presenting it, and you question one of the figures, and they sit there like a rabbit in the headlights and they don't know how to answer it. The problem is they never drafted the presentation. They simply asked ChatGPT or Claude to do it, which means they've got to the outcome without ever understanding how they got there. Engineer especially, this just screams red flag. If you come to the fix without ever understanding how you get there, it's not repeatable. You also can't then teach that out. It's unlikely that you'll be able to perform when it matters most. So what do you do about this? And I think the key thing here is to make sure you train your team. You need to advise them on how to use AI, when to use AI and when not to use AI. And I get it, you've probably rolled it out across the business and you want your team to use it. But this is where the risk of AI atrophy comes in the most. And think about it, if you were running a manufacturing business, you wouldn't give one of your engineers a new tool or bring in a new machine without first properly training them on it and giving them the right resources and knowledge to effectively maintain that machine. The same applies with an AI tool. Training them is easier than it looks. Just be clear about what you want. If you're after a nice presentation, then fine, let them use AI. But if it's actually the training that they'll get within creating the presentation, which is more valuable, then make sure they leave AI purely for design. Draft the content first and then edit it later with AI. Last one is within my business. And this one is much harder to quantify, but it's something I can guarantee you've all felt before. We replaced all of our customer service with an AI operator or an AI agent. We aim to get our response time down to just 1 minute. Fantastic, customers will be happy. Well, that's not quite true. Because when you give the agency and when you give your customer service away to an AI agent, you lose that boots on the ground feel. You stop checking the customer service inbox. You stop asking customers what they actually want. And you think just because you responded to their query quickly, that's going to be enough. But it's not. As a business owner and founder, you need to understand your customers more than you understand anything. And you give that away when you give that to an AI customer service tool. And don't get me wrong, you can have the boots on the ground feel while having an AI customer service, but you just need to systemize for it. For example, systems in place so you check the inbox, systems in place so you follow up with customers, systems in place so you don't lose the personal feel. AI isn't very good at detecting tone, and this is also why you shouldn't use it to review an argument. But this is what it misses, the micro expressions. When you read an email and you know customer's upset, and it's not the words that is said, it's the cadence and the subtle intricacies of different words used in different places, which a human can pick up on. And not just that, I also feel customers are getting sick to death of AI replacing everything. They just want to talk to a human. So give them that, they'll be happy. So why do I even care about this? And the truth is, it's not really about the tools. I'm an engineer, I'm a problem solver, I'm an entrepreneur. I like to get better, I like to leave the world in a better way than I found it. And that only happens if there's enough people around me to innovate also. Your brain is a muscle. It gets trained the same way any other muscle does, and that's by using it. Using it and pushing it slightly beyond your comfort zone, slightly beyond its capability, by doing difficult things badly and then doing them again. You get sharper by solving complex problems. Sitting in that uncomfortable uncertainty where you don't quite know the answer yet, but you have a belief in yourself that you'll find it. And all this is just training, and it's probably the only place it happens. And we're giving one of the most valuable resources we have away to an LLM, because if we give all of our complex problems to the LLM and to AI, where will we ever get the experience from? How will we ever get better? How do we ever sharpen our minds and improve our problem solving skills? And that's the question I can't get away from. And it's not what will these tools do for work, it's what will these tools do for the capacity for us to be able to work. And that's atrophy. It's never about the output, it's always about what happens to you while the output gets easier. So draft first, edit later, train yourself and train your team before you give them the tool, and use it to check, never to decide. So 2 things before you go. I have a range of experience in AI, engineering and entrepreneurship, and I'd just like to know whether this episode was the right format for you guys, whether you prefer the overarching idea or you prefer me to go down into more detailed technical routes. What you say is going to decide what I do next. I would have asked AI, but I'd rather draft first than edit later. But if you enjoyed, then subscribe. We're going to have 2 episodes a week. Next week, we're going to talk about apathy. This has been The Singularity. Welcome in. There's no going back.